Not a sight you might expect at one of Australia's most popular tourist sites. Visitors to the Blue Mountains west of Sydney are forced to wear face masks as the smoke from nearby bushfires fills the air. The iconic rock formations are barely visible in the haze.
It's really disappointing, so we're really looking forward to seeing the view, and I've always wanted to see the Blue Mountains, so it's such a shame that when we came, it looks like this.
But that problem is small compared to the challenge firefighters in New South Wales are set to face at the weekend. After a brief respite during a few days of damper weather over Christmas, temperatures are again expected to soar, bringing new risks.
That's going to bring not just the heat out of the centre of Australia, we're going to see the temperatures up into the low to mid-40s across a lot of areas, but it's going to bring a very dry air as well. So that's going to elevate fire dangers, and we know the winds are going to start turning around to the west and the northwest, which is why so much work has been going on over this last week. While conditions are more mild.
Some 70 fires are burning near Sydney in New South Wales. More than 1,000 firefighters, and now the military, are in action across the state, trying to contain the fires and prevent them from reaching more inhabited areas.
We're just putting in a backburn containment line to try and prevent the fire from heading towards the coastal villages.
Already more than 850 homes have been razed in New South Wales. Authorities are also working to protect infrastructure surrounding a vital dam west of Sydney that provides water to around 4 million people in the city, but which could be at risk if the fires spread.
Well, for more, let's cross over to journalist Roger Maynard in Sydney. Roger, bushfires have been raging around Sydney for weeks now. What effect is this having on everyday life there?
Well, certainly the bushfires have got alarmingly close to Sydney, within perhaps an hour or two's drive from the city centre. So that's a bit of a worry for people. But the biggest concern has been the smoke haze, which has blanketed much of New South Wales now for much of the past fortnight or so. I mean, that's obviously dangerous for people with breathing difficulties. It's dangerous for people with heart problems. And it's also very unpleasant to smell and to breathe yourself, even if you're reasonably healthy. So that's been one of the big effects of the bushfires in the cities. And of course, it's much worse in the countryside. And it's the country people who've really been suffering for the past few weeks. Not only are the firefighters putting themselves at risk, but of course, the people generally are worried about losing their homes and the threat to their own lives as well. So, the whole community has become stressed. And that was a point made by the mayor of the Blue Mountains earlier on today, who said, look, this sort of stress is affecting families. They're living with the daily threat to their homes and also the threat to human life. And as you rightly mentioned just now, 9 people have so far died in this bushfire crisis, and something like 800 or 900 homes have been lost. So it's affecting a lot of people, and it permeates throughout the country.
Now, many are linking the intensity of the bushfires to climate change. What's the government's response to that?
Well, there's a vociferous debate going on here about what's caused the drought and what's caused the climate change, which we're undoubtedly experiencing here. Undoubtedly, the fires this year have been much more intense and much more extensive than they have in previous years. But the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, refuses to directly blame any particular factor for the bushfires. He says that he's reluctant to take any firm action against climate change, which might affect the economy. And remember that Australia earns about $60 billion a year from exports of coal and relies very heavily too on coal-fired power stations for electricity. So he doesn't want to do anything that's going to harm the economy. On the other hand, you have to say that the effect of the smoke and the fires over the past few weeks has certainly changed public opinion, and almost certainly Morrison and his government will come under increasing pressure to change their mind when it comes to action on climate change.
Roger, thank you very much for your insights. That was journalist Roger Maynard there in Sydney.
Thank you.